Donald Trump is a demented human being. There is seriously something wrong with this man. He has now gone from being a president to a deranged, delusional, demented person who is now making up stories about making a peace deal or in conversation because he can't face the reality that he's losing the war. And not only that, he's created this illusion that everything he's doing is doing for us. And while this war is going on, everything is going up in price. And MAGA shows on a daily basis just how brainwashed they really, really are. Because I posted something to social media by a guy named Harry Sisson, who I discovered through watching, videos on Instagram. And when I posted it to my stories, and the thing is that the same person who sees these stories keeps messaging me. And I'm going to show you the comments that he made to me this morning. I want to play you the clip of Harry Sisson saying how MAG is saying gas prices are good for America, which, by the way, is the same talking point that Donald Trump said, is that when he said a few weeks ago that prices will rise, but it's okay if it's for a good cause or something for that vein. So here's Harry Sisson talking about the MAGA saying it's good for America.
The new Republican talking point has gone out, and they're going on all of these different channels and arguing that actually high gas prices and high grocery prices is a good thing for Americans. Just watch.
As far as the oil prices, people just need to stop panicking. It's worth it to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So if I have to pay a little bit more for gas, I'll do that.
You got to pay the price. I mean, in order to have long-term stability.
The disruptions in the global markets are real and may be painful. But the long-term benefits, again, are incalculable.
There may be some sacrifices to be made at the pump on a temporary basis. I'm willing to pay 30% or 30 cents more at the pump to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon.
To win in life, you got to suffer short-term pain for the long-term gain, or short-term pain for long-term gain. Freedom is not free. Americans are going to have to make some sacrifices. This is short-term, and I'm asking you to just trust the man, okay? Trust the system, let him...
And these are the same people that freaked out when gas prices...
Can someone please explain to me?
Were high. These are the same people who freaked out when gas prices were high under President Biden. And all this reporting that I did came from Fox, Newsmax, News Nation, and even, yes, CNBC. And they're all touting this as a good thing. But these are the same people who complained when gas prices were high under Joe Biden. And when they were high under Joe Biden, there was nothing to do with the war. It had to do because it was a pandemic. Which, okay, that makes sense because during a pandemic, the entire world is panicking. So, they're all hypocrites. They either forgot that they complained about it during Joe Biden's term. They either forgot that about a pandemic, or they are so brainwashed by Donald Trump that he can't do any wrong. And just to prove another point about how hypocrisy is, because yesterday I had mentioned in my podcast where over the weekend Robert Mueller died, and he was a special prosecutor investigating Donald Trump and Russia. And Donald Trump decided to open his big mouth because, he has a verbal diarrhea. He can't shut up. He has everything that happens. He has to open his mouth and say something. And over the weekend he said, Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can only hurt some people. If you have nothing nice to say, you keep your goddamn fucking mouth shut. You don't have to say this. Okay? And he did not hurt any innocent people. And by the way, Robert Mueller went to school with John Kerry. Robert Mueller served in the Marines. Robert Mueller was a better person than Donald Trump was ever. Donald Trump never served a day in his life in the Marines. He never served a day in his life in the Air Force. Hell, he never served a day in the military. And yet, he's telling us our brave men and women in battle. Then he's saying, if you get captured, you're a sucker. He insulted John Cain. He said John Cain got caught, was captured, became a hostage, and so he's a sucker. He was a loser. Or yesterday when he said, people will die. There are going to be casualties. Well, no shit, Sherlock, but you don't have to say that. And these are the same people who, when you badmouth Charlie Kirk's death, when you celebrated that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the shit at the fan and said, fire! We should fire people! It was J.D. Vance who said if anybody celebrates the death of Charlie Kirk, they should be fired. Jimmy Kimmel did it, and they demanded he get off the air. It was Sinclair Broadcasting that said we're no longer carrying Jimmy Kimmel because of what he said. Brandon Carr got him off the air, but that backfired. They demanded Jimmy Kimmel give an apology. Jimmy Kimmel said, I absolutely will not give an apology. And you know what? He was right. He was right. Because giving an apology means you're caving into the administration and like everybody else who has done that. And he's not going to apologize for something he said just because you got offended by it. But here we have Donald Trump saying, I'm glad he's dead. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? And I bring this up because J.D. Vance had to comment on it. And in passing, Senator Cory Booker, wrote on this video that hypocrisy knows no bounds. Now remember, they're asking him the following thing about Donald Trump's Truth Social post, which is Robert Mueller just died. Good, I'm glad he's dead. And this was the response.
Look, we have a First Amendment in this country. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech. But if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being a disgusting person. Look, we have a First Amendment in this country. The First Amendment protects a lot of very ugly speech. But if you celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, you should not be protected from being fired for being a disgusting person. Look, we have...
So he's basically telling you that you can't quote Charlie Kirk and celebrate his death. He was asked point blank, J.D. Vance, to respond to what he said about Robert Mueller, and he's not even addressing it. He's just saying, look, if you're celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, he's talking about the First Amendment rights. Great. I understand that. I'm all for it. Hallelujah, Mazel Tov, Lord be Jesus. But your hypocrisy. You're basically saying you speak bad about Charlie Kirk and you should be fired. Except for one problem with that statement. You can't say you're for the First Amendment, but then say somebody should be fired because they're celebrating someone's death. That contradicts what you've just said. That contradicts. But why are you okay with what Donald Trump said? Isn't that basically the same thing? Yay, I'm glad he's dead. Woohoo. You know what? I'm going to say this now. You know what? And to prove a point, I posted on my social media, I can't wait for that piece of the POS, demented man, Donald Trump. I can't wait till he's 6 feet under. And you know what? The shit hit the fan. People were like, oh, you have Trump deranged syndrome. Oh, how do you wish someone dead? You hate Trump that much that you wishing him dead? And I wrote back very clearly, oh, excuse me. So are you defending what Donald Trump said? That I'm glad he's dead? You have no problem with that, but you have a problem with me wishing the same thing on Donald Trump? And this, well, he's already dead, so it's a different. How is it different? How is it different? You explain this to me. How is that different? You should never wish somebody dead. And they're like, well, you just did. I said, yeah, I did it to prove a point. As much as I think Donald Trump is a deranged asshole, I still do not wish him dead. But I was doing it to prove a point. You're angry at people for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, telling them they should lose their jobs, be taken off the air, and then demand an apology. Okay? Donald Trump says about Robert Mueller, a decorated officer and a well-respected person. I'm glad he's dead. And and people are defending that. But you're also saying First Amendment rights. Great. But you can't have it both ways. If it's First Amendment rights, then Jimmy Kimmel should never have been taken off the air in the first place. The only reason why he's back on there is because that backfired spectacularly. And then you're celebrating that he's off the air. You're celebrating that Stephen Colbert was canceled. So, is the First Amendment only good when it benefits you? Or is the First Amendment good for everybody? Which one is it? Now, the First Amendment is a very, very broad term. And it encompasses a lot of things. It's freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. And this is all. And a lot of these Trump supporters have this issue now in New York because, as many people know, we have Mayor Mamdani as the mayor of New York City. And now, because he's a Muslim, the Muslims are praying in the street, closing up, the streets, closing up the sidewalks and praying. And people are Trump supporters. And I'm going to say this as best as I possibly can. The Jewish population seems to have a problem with this. And the bigotry knows no bounds here. We're saying Muslims are praying in the streets and they shouldn't do that. And they shouldn't pray in public. If they want to pray, they should go to the mosques. But wait a minute. But we do the same thing as Jews. And I've experienced this myself. You go to a ball game and people are saying, did you pray it? Did you pray the evening prayers? The Muslims, they pray 5 times a day. We as Jews, we pray 3 times a day. Morning prayers, afternoon prayers, and evening prayers. Okay? So you go to a ball game and you ask us, did you pray it? Did you pray it? And they find a place in the ballpark to pray. You go to a theme park or a zoo or things like that, and they find a place to play. So let me ask you a question. We do it. We do it on a daily basis. Shouldn't we do the same thing the Muslims are doing? If you want them to pray in a mosque, which is their synagogue, shouldn't we go to our synagogue and do the same thing if you're so gung-ho about it? Because if I recall correctly, and I know this because I did it a couple of weekends ago, they closed up Times Square, Chabad closed up Times Square for a big rally and a big celebration. That was public praying, was it not? And if the Muslims are doing the same thing, how come it's okay for us but it's not okay for them? And you're saying it's hatred? And it's Mamdani's New York now because the Muslims are taking over? Do you know how racist you sound? You're acting like Muslims have never prayed in public before. You're acting like Muslims have never been, that Muslims are suddenly coming out of the woodworks and you didn't even know they lived in New York. Really? Because most of the bodegas in New York are owned or operated or managed by Muslims. Believe it or not, they're either Muslims or Arabs that are running those bodegas. Many of the Dunkin' Donuts have them. Many of the 7-Elevens have them. So why are you acting like this is some sort of news? And how come not one Democrat has a problem with this? Why is it it's only the and I can't speak for anybody else because I've only seen this among the Jews on social media and in my own personal experiences. But why is it the Jews have issues with this when we do the same exact thing? And I made it a point to mention it to somebody on their page, and they told me to shut the fuck up. Why? Because this is what happens when you're in a cult. This is what happens when you follow a madman who is filled with hatred, who's filled with bigotry, who's filled with racism, and it spreads to the ends of the earth. And when you get so ensconced in it and so enamored by it, you know nothing else. But this is not a new thing, my friends. This is something we have experienced and will continue to experience until the end of time. And what's wrong with praying? What's wrong with praying? Why does it have to be in a mosque? If I want to pray, freedom of religion means I can practice my religion anywhere I want. If I decide I want to get out of my car in the middle of the highway and pray, that's my right. I wouldn't do it because you're blocking traffic, but you get the idea. If I decide I want to just park my car and get out and pray in the middle on the sidewalk, and I've seen Muslims doing this in Manhattan. I've seen Muslims doing it, going on the floor to pray. I've seen this myself. And if they can do it, why can't I? Why can I? And by the way, we don't know why the Muslims do it. We don't know the reason. But if as a Jewish person, if as a Jewish person, we can pray anywhere we want. And I've seen this happen in public places, on holidays, and people are at the zoo, or at the theme parks, or at a ball game, or wherever. And they say, did you pray it? Did you pray it? Come on, we need 10 people. Come on, come on. That's public. Do you see black people saying, oh my God, look at these Jews. Why are they doing this? Why are they gathering? Have you seen a Muslim say it about Jews? Oh my God, why can't they pray in a synagogue? Did you see this about Christians or Catholics telling the Jews, oh my God, why do they got to take the space? Now, they may be thinking it, but they're not going to say it. There's a difference. And that gets me back to the Harry Sasan thing. And now that you know what he said, this is basically what happened. He's saying this. Who is saying this? And when he was talking about the Harry Sasan story, he said, who is saying this sources? I said, MAGA, can't you read? He's even showing it. Yeesh, and I've seen videos. Do you agree? His response is he posts another video unrelated to the gas. Because the video that he posted next was from my stories, which is about the Iran war. And he said, liberals are defending this. You have a defense? And I said, don't deflect. And then he goes back to MAGA, can't you read? He's even showing Yeesh, and I've seen videos. He goes, show it then. And I wrote, and then he says, do you agree? He says, I can't agree, you haven't sent the video yet. But the question was, do you agree that the gas prices are too high? That they're good for America? That was the question. But he's saying he can't answer because he hasn't seen them, because I haven't sent him the videos yet. I said, don't deflect. He says it's not deflection. And I go, I can't agree you haven't sent the videos in. I wrote, that wasn't the question. He gives a laughing emoji. I said, don't you agree about the high price, about the high gas prices? And then he responds to me with that wasn't a question. He goes, reflect and gaslight, typical Democrat. This is why me as a liberal cannot vote Democrat. You guys are all hypocrites. And then I responded, this is what you messaged me about, so I'm not gaslighting. He goes, the gas prices are high. I drive and I have eyes. To which I responded again, that wasn't the question. Why do you message me every time we keep having the same conversations that I always win? He says, you have never won once. If it makes you feel superior, I'll give it to you. You won, but America lost. I said, then why aren't you answering a simple question and accusing me of what you're doing? To which he responded, I answered, gas prices are high. That was your question. You're still gaslighting my original question. Then he wrote, gas prices are high. It's terrible, but this war only made it more expensive because of the corruption of the gas companies, making it more expensive because they can. Okay, this has nothing to do with what we're talking. This has nothing to do with the war, but okay. Pure evil and has nothing to do with the war. These oligarchs are the real people controlling the country, and if we don't do something soon, it'll be too late. It is too bad they own both parties and have zero interest in giving up their power. I don't know what the hell he's talking about here because this has nothing to do with the war. But okay. I said no. I asked, do you agree that prices should be high? And then I responded to him and goes, yes, this war is illegal, unconstitutional, unnecessary, and no one knows why, not even him. He responded to no, I asked, do you agree? Because I said yes 3 times already. And then, it's not true. Unless unrelated, they are distracted you from the real issue. Don't get fooled. I said, really? Was Congress informed? Did they approve? To which he responded, you are distracted from the real problems. I said, yep. Epstein files, his low approval ratings, his losing the government. And then I would answer. He goes, you don't ask real questions. You know the answer is he doesn't need it. You won't accept the truth. You are too brainwashed by liberal talking heads. And I responded to him, the answer is presidents can't declare war and must get congressional approval. Only Congress can declare war. That's the facts. To which he responded, he never declared war, and you know it. Good try. Look up the last time we declared war. You might be surprised. I said, invading a country is an act of war and still illegal. To which he brings up, as usual, MAGA parroting. Then Bush, Obama, and Biden broke that multiple times. We can't only care when Trump does it. It's called selective rage. It's getting old. I said, we have no reason to be in Iran, to which he did another laughing emoji. And he wrote, this can't be serious, can it? You can't think of one reason? I said, there was no imminent threat, and that's been proven. That was 7 hours ago, to which I have yet to get a response. And this all stemmed from that one story video. And they're very good at deflecting and telling you that you're gaslighting because they are so enamored with Donald Trump and they believe whatever he says that he's like the Messiah to them. And it's like, he can't do no wrong. He can't do no wrong. And then he's going off on a tangent about the gas companies and how this is their fault and that's why we're at war. And I'm like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? We're at war because the gas companies are raised. Do you even know how energy works? I don't, so I don't comment on it because I don't know enough information about the energy crisis to know anything about it. That's why you read. You watch shows like Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell and for some credit, Ari Melber, who happens to be a lawyer. And they happen to give you history lessons and backstories. Rachel Maddow, specifically, when she has a topic she wants to talk about on the show, she goes back in time and giving you an entire history lesson. And you don't know why she's doing that until you realize she's giving you a backstory that's going to relate to the topic she wants to discuss firsthand. And I learned a lot from watching Rachel Maddow. And Lawrence O'Donnell does the exact same thing. And he was talking about Richard Nixon last night. And Richard Nixon also had a special prosecutor assigned to him. And when his special prosecutor died, Richard Nixon did the smart thing. He said absolutely nothing. He could have said whatever he wanted, but Richard Nixon kept his mouth shut and said nothing. And Donald Trump, when his special prosecutor died, he said, "I'm glad he's dead." And I didn't know this until Lawrence O'Donnell said it to me last night. And then you go on these other channels, Fox. What are you learning from them? What are you learning from them? They may tell you some bullshit backstory, and they're only telling you because they're all Trump supporters. I mean, look, Sean Hannity has a private line to Trump. Jesse Waters is a son of a bitch, but you know he always has this smirk on his face, like it's comedy hour for him. And Laura Ingraham just has no personality, you know. When I sometimes watch her, she's putting me to sleep, and I learn nothing from from any one of them, except because they're only repeating what Donald Trump says, and they're whatever he says is. And that's why facts matter. And that's why people can't stand MS Now or CNN, because Donald Trump said you can't. Donald Trump said they can't. And CNN you can forget about, because once if that merger goes through, you'll now have two news outlets being run by the Trump administration and by MAGAs. And it'll be state-run media or government-run media. And you will not be able to trust CNN anymore. And CBS isn't trusted anymore either. And that went quick when people started taking an exodus out of there. And so, when you look at the war, and Donald Trump is saying he and the Ayatollah is going to control the Strait of Hormuz, he's delusional if he thinks that, because he doesn't own the Strait of Hormuz. And we don't own that. Iran owns that. And by the way, do you really think Iran is going to lose this war? Do you think Iran is actually going to surrender? Yes, there's a fact that many countries, including in the Middle East, hate Iran. And Iran will kill their own people. Yes, that's a fact. But when you tell people, when it's been proven that there's no imminent threat, and MAGA's telling you there was, who are you going to believe? The idiot piece of shit in the Oval Office, or the director of the Intelligence Committee, and the director of the CIA, who I think would know a lot better than him, because they're the ones who are giving the information to the president. And they have no reason to lie. Now, I'm more inclined to believe John Radcliffe over Tulsi Gabbard. But that being said, it was given by multiple sources that there was no imminent threat. And we already had a good deal that was signed under Obama. And the Iranians were actually complying with that deal, and Trump took that deal and tore it up. Now, did he tear it up because he wants to get credit for something he didn't do? Or out of hatred for Obama? Remember, Donald Trump was the same person who opened his mouth and said without any evidence that Obama was an illegitimate president because he was born in Kenya and not the United States, which was proven false. Oh, President Obama is American through and through. So, and the same person, by the way, that I read this to you, He keeps messaging me every time on these stories when I post Harry's son or some other buddy or somebody else. And the same conversation happens all the time. And then he ends the conversation when the same way. When he can't rebuttal me. And I'd like to give $1,000 to anybody who can prove me wrong on anything I've said on these podcasts. If you can prove to me that that the threat to us was imminent, I will give anybody $1,000 if they can prove to me that the threat was real and that Iran was on the verge of attacking me. I will. And I made this about a year ago. And nobody came forward, and I'm doing it again now. Prove me wrong, and I will give you $100 for each thing I've mentioned, and you can prove me wrong about. No strings attached, no questions asked. Prove me wrong, and I will give you $100 for each one you correct me on. And I've said this to MAGA, I've said it to my friends, I've said it to anybody who wants to pay attention to me. And not one person has come forward and proven me wrong. And what demented lunatic is making threats by telling Congress, give up Easter with your family and pass the SAVE Act for Jesus? That's like asking the Jews in Congress, give up Yom Kippur and stay in the Senate so that we can get this law passed. Really? Are you more important than Jesus Christ? Are you more important than the most holiest day of the year? Do you really think senators are going to give up Easter with their families when it's the holiest day of the year for the Christians? Or you think they're going to give that up so that you can get your bullshit, bogus Save America Act passed? Are you out of your fucking mind? And then you're going, and if they go home, I'm going to publicly shame every single one of them. Yeah, that's going to help you. Yeah, that's going to really get you points in the midterms. Really? So you're going to publicly humiliate and shame Republican senators who choose to go home to their families to observe the holiest day of the year for them? Because of your pettiness? Because of your delusions? Are you out of your fucking mind? And then you wonder why you have the lowest approval ratings of any presidency? And then you wonder why Democrats are winning the elections across the country? I mean, imagine you told it to Chuck Schumer and said, yeah, don't go home for Yom Kippur because I need the SAVE Act passed. So please don't go home with your family for Yom Kippur and stay in the Senate. Do you really think Chuck Schumer is going to listen to that? Okay? Do you think Chuck Schumer is going to listen to that? What about John Ostroff, who's also Jewish and a Democratic senator? Do you really think if you tell John Ostroff, don't go home to Yom Kippur with your family. If you go home until this bill is passed, you're not going home to your family, and I will publicly shame you if you do that. Do you think devout Christians or devout Catholics are going to bow to Donald Trump and stay and work on Easter, the holiest day of the year, away from their families, while Donald Trump is going to church with his family to celebrate Easter? You have to ask yourself, why is he so adamant on pushing this bill? Forget the fact that two things he wants in them are bullshit and don't exist in reality whatsoever. He made that up. But throw that out for a second. Why is he so adamant on that? They had a deal in place to fund the TSA. They had a deal in place. Both parties actually had agreed on this to fund TSA and the DHS, not ICE. And Donald Trump rejected it because it didn't have anything because it didn't have the Save America Act attached to it, or the transgender mutilization, or the women in sports bullshit. And Donald Trump isn't telling you that part. He's not telling you that part because he doesn't want you to know that. But then you're sending ICE to the airports unmasked. And videos are being shown from travelers at the airport taking pictures of ICE, and they're sitting around doing nothing. They're sitting around doing nothing. This isn't solving anything. This isn't solving anything. The lines are still long. You see, why can't you do the smart thing? As Lawrence Donnell said last night, why can't they do the smart thing, which is take some of the money from ICE and put it towards TSA. ICE has more money than they know what to do with. Why don't you take some of that money and allocate it to the TSA? If Elon Musk was sincere by saying he was going to pay the TSA's salaries, then okay, actions speak louder than words. Put your money in your mouth and pay them. But on that assumption, why can you take money from TSA and allocate it to the TSA? Donald Trump likes to create problems that aren't there. And instead of fixing the problem, tries to make the problem worse. And then, when he can't get out of it, he tries to get other people to fix it for him. Like this war. Donald Trump doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He has no idea. There's no end game in sight. And so, because he's stuck in a corner, he created a fictional narrative that never happened by saying, we've done 2 days of talks with Iran and they're very productive. The only problem with that scenario is Iran is saying, huh? We're not, no one, there's no diplomat here, there's no negotiator here, we don't know what's going on, okay. And then when that story didn't work for him, he went silent. He went silent. This whole airport thing, and now he's threatening he's not going to do the airport. And you have to understand the SAVE Act, and as I said it yesterday, it's bullshit. It's a bill that's simply for Donald Trump to control the elections. And he wants the bill, and he will do whatever he can to get that bill. John Thune already said on more than one occasion, we do not have the votes in either scenario, which is getting rid of the filibuster and voting on it the regular way. He said, we do not have the votes. Nothing you say, sir, is going to change that. And Donald Trump doesn't know anything. He is so delusional. He firmly believes that the 2020 election was stolen from him. And he keeps projecting that if we don't sign the Save America Act, the Democrats are going to cheat again in the midterms. And that's a bullshit lie, and everyone outside of the cult knows this. That it's projection. We see Donald Trump openly stealing the elections, trying to cheat, openly, but it's the Democrats' fault. And we see that. And now we see breaking news where the United States expect to send thousands more soldiers to the Middle East for a war that, you know, you're in trouble if nobody knows what the hell the war, why we're in a war. You know you're in trouble when the person who actually invaded the country has no idea why we're there and then has no idea how to stop it. So instead of trying to figure that out, we're sending more troops to the Middle East. This comes from way of Reuters, who says the Pentagon is expected to send thousands of soldiers from the U.S. Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East, even adding to a massive military budget, even as Donald Trump talks about a possible deal with Tehran to end the war. Except Iran knows nothing about this deal. Reuters first reported on March 18th that Trump's administration was considering deploying thousands of additional troops, a move that would expand options to include deployment of forces inside Iranian territory. Such an escalation could dramatically raise the stakes in the conflict, which is already in its fourth week and has rolled global markets. The official, speaking under the condition of anonymity, did not specify where the Middle East troops would go or where they would arrive. These soldiers are coming from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. One of the sources said the Pentagon was set to send between 3,000 and 4,000 soldiers. It follows deployment about U.S. decision to send thousands of Marines and soldiers aboard the USS Boxer, an amphibious assault ship, along with its Marine Expeditionary Unit. News of these reinforcements comes just a day after Trump postponed threats to bomb Iranian power plants, saying there had been productive talks with Iran. But after Trump's comments, Iran denied that any talks had been held. 13 troops have been killed so far, with 290 women wounded. Now, is it possible that Iran is potentially in talks with the Trump administration? Anything is possible. Would Iran deny it? It might be for strategic purposes, yes, but I don't know. But it's a sad day as an American when you are siding with the enemy, because you're not supposed to side with the enemy. But at this point, I do agree with Iran, because I do not trust Trump. I do not trust our government, and that is a sad thing to say, but yet here we are. Sources have previously said, as Trump weighs next steps, sources previously said the U.S. military was looking at options in the Iran war, including securing the Strait of Hormuz potentially by deploying U.S. forces to Iran's shoreline. The Trump administration has also discussed options in ground forces to Iran's Karg Island, the hub for 90% of Iran's oil exports. The 82nd Airborne Division, which can deploy within 18 hours of receiving orders, specializes in carrying out parachute assaults. Any use of U.S. ground troops, and they've said this many times before, and there are many people in the Senate who are former military members, like Mark Kelly and Elise Slotkin, so they've actually gone on the news to actually say this, that any use of ground troops, even for a limited mission, could pose significant political risks for Trump, given low American public support for the Iran campaign and Trump's own pre-election promise to avoid entangling the U.S. in a new Middle East conflict. On Tuesday, a Reuters Ipsos poll found that 35% of Americans approve of the U.S. strikes on Iran, down from 37% in a survey conducted last week. Some 61% disapproved of the strikes, compared to 59% last week. Nobody wants this war. This war is costing American taxpayers billions of dollars by the day, and Trump has the chutzpah to go to Congress and ask for $200 billion to continue this war that Congress never approved and that nobody asked for or wants. And Trump doesn't realize that this is going to be called, that this is a global catastrophe, that it doesn't just affect us, it affects the entire global economy, because we all rely on the Middle East. We all rely on the Strait of Hormuz. And until Donald Trump started this war, I had no idea there was something called the Strait of Hormuz, or Karg Island for that matter. And Trump wants to take Karg Island and take it for himself. And this yo-yo head is still talking about invading Cuba. He's still talking about invading Cuba. He said first Venezuela, now Iran, Cuba, you're on deck. It's as if he thinks this is a game, because he keeps saying, we're going to keep bombing Iran for fun. For fun. Are you fucking retarded? You're bombing, you're killing civilians. And let's not mention, you're still blaming Iran for blowing up that girls' school and killing all these school children, and you're blaming Iran for it when the evidence shows that it was us. And you're not even apologizing to the families of Iran whose children you killed. You're not even. And Pete Hegseth is saying it's under investigation. Really? It's still under investigation? 4 weeks later, it's still under investigation? It's very simple. All we got to do is look at all the videos that are out there. We got to look is the records there. And Maggie saying, well, it wasn't America, and it wasn't Israel. Well, at this point, Israel is debatable right now, and as a Jewish person, to say that about my home country is sad. But you know what? Was it Israel that convinced Trump to go into Iran, or was it the other way around? It was the other way around. And there's so many narratives going around about the war. We have no idea what's what. And I want to read this to you that I just got sent to me. You can always tell when a war narrative is starting to rot. It's not when Democrats complain. It's when people who are supposed to help sell it, your own team, start hesitating, start asking for clarification, start saying, hold on. And in Iran, that's where we are, because the administration of talking like this was urgent, inevitable. We had no choice. The threat was right around the corner. The usual bullshit script that they say. And then the briefings have happened and the story got messier. Reuters reported that Pentagon officials told lawmakers in closed-door briefings there was no intelligence showing Iran was about to attack U.S. forces first. Okay? They're saying that. And that was part of what the hearing was about the other 2 weeks ago with the head of the CIA, the FBI, the Intelligence Committee, and the general of the military. That was what the meeting was about. And that's a whole argument that's collapsing right there on Trump's narrative, because he said the threat was imminent. The threat was imminent. But, and speaking of which, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in front of senators, said she would not straightforwardly validate the imminent threat framing. She kept punting that determination back to the president, which basically means she was saying the president will determine that. And the senators that were questioning her saying, no, ma'am, that's your job. You are the Director of Intelligence. You are privy to this information, and with this information, you bring it to the President of the United States. And she kept saying, no, 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 it's the President's job. He would know. Ask him. Okay, if it's not your job, then get the fuck out of, then fucking resign. Why, if it's not your job? Okay, then how does the president get his information from? Where's he getting his threat matrix report from? His butt? Melania? Bert and Ernie? Elmo? Somebody's giving him a threat matrix report on a daily basis, right? But who? Is he shitting it out of his ass every morning when he poops? I mean, how many people are going to keep defending this person when they know that it's their job? And they swore an oath when they took the oath of office. They swore to uphold the law and do their job diligently, as long as they were able to do. Pam Bondi took it. Kash Patel took that oath. Tulsi Gabbard took that oath. John Ratcliffe took that oath. Christine Arms took that oath. And let's not forget, Donald Trump took the oath, but he didn't swear in a Bible, so, you know. If you watch this pattern, the public message is basically clear that we're stupid and Trump is smart, and we all have to listen to what he says because he's the president and he knows better than everybody else, including his entire cabinet combined. But the public message is clean and absolute. The intelligence picture is cautious, conditional, and full of caveats. That's not fake news. The politics hate caveats, so it shaves them off. That's not fake news. That's how you talk yourself into war. And it's not happening in a vacuum. Europe is openly distancing itself from Trump's operation, saying they weren't consulted. They don't understand the aims, and they're not signing up for it. And they're not wrong. They are not wrong. Because if you're going into a country to invade them, you are supposed to contact your allies and have a meeting with them and say, by the way, we know A, B, and C. What do you suggest we do? What is your strategy? And they weren't consulted. They don't know what the hell's going on in Iran. And Donald Trump is saying, help us, please. They all said, fuck off. And now he's threatening every single one of them by saying, we're going to get rid of NATO, which he can't even do, but that's Donald Trump's mentality, thinking that he has the power to do whatever the fuck he wants because he's the president of the United States. You see this pattern? He asks for help because he doesn't know how to fix the problem that he created. So he's asking the allies to help him try to fix that problem. They say, fuck you. He threatens them and says, you know what? We don't need you. We can do this ourselves. Which means Taco Man is back. You know, Trump always chickens out. So, because he's not getting what he wants, he's now saying, you know what? Screw all of you. We don't need you. We can do this ourselves. Okay, smartass. If you can do it yourself, what's the end game for the war? How do you plan on ending it? And you can't say, when I feel it in my bones, because it's just a bullshit cop-out answer. And it's not a thing. Because what if you feel it in your bones 3 years from now? So yes, these countries, these European nations, are basically saying, we are distancing ourselves from this war because it's not our war. We have no idea why you invaded Iran. We have no idea what your objective is. We have no idea what your goals are. And when we ask to you, you tell us, we're making it up as we go along. Well, okay, you're making it up as you go along. That's not a war. That's how you make a war. You don't have a war and you make it up as you go along. You have a strategy and you have a plan. And then you I forget the word. Oh, you execute it. Like a normal person does. No one just makes a wedding. No one just says, we're getting married, makes a wedding, and then, we're making a wedding. We'll decide, as the wedding progresses, we'll decide what's on the menu to eat. We'll decide who we're inviting, We'll decide, how the table should be set and everything. We'll make it up as we go along. Hey, the kids are growing up. We'll make it up as we go along. We'll raise them. How? We'll make it up as we go along. Yeah. And how's that going for you? And how is that going? And so Donald Trump, and I was saying, it's not happening in a vacuum. Europe is only distancing itself from Trump's operations and they won't consult. That's what it looks like when allies don't trust your judgment. They start building plans that don't include you. Just like in school. This is like when you go in school and you have no friends and they're planning everything without you and you feel all alone and left out. That's exactly what we are now. Meanwhile, as Rubio is pushing diplomats to pressure allies to blacklist Iran's Revolutionary Guards and Hezbollah, while the reporting notes skepticism and reluctance abroad to get dragged deeper into this. So the strain is everywhere at once. Inside briefings, across alliances, inside hearings. Here's why this matters beyond Iran. Because when administration treats intelligence like a product, something you package for TV instead of something you respect, you poison the country's ability to trust anything later. Next time there's a real threat, people will hear that spin. That's what happens when leadership burns credibility to win a news cycle. We've seen this movie before. Trust us. No time. You can't see everything. The threat is bigger than you know. And later, after the blood and the bulls, you find that something was manufactured. The only defense against that is sunlight. So, read the briefings, watch the testimony, pay attention to what officials won't say as much as they do. And this is really important because when you're believing these lies, as I proved earlier, when MAGA is trying to defend Donald Trump, but they can't prove that he's right, and you prove that he's wrong, and everyone is saying there was no imminent threat, but Donald Trump's insisting there is, and he's putting people in danger, and he's too much of a dimwit to understand that there's a consequence here, and this is going to hurt us globally, peacefully, and as you see, Europe no longer trusts us. Our allies are now alienating us, and I said this months ago that the world is not going to want to deal with us anymore because they no longer trust us. We no longer have any credibility, and this is sad, my friends. This is sad that if we're on our own, and Donald Trump is such a dim-witted, deranged moron to understand anything, he has to realize that it's his way or no way. And nobody ever cooperated by threats, because that's what a bully does. Bullies threaten and intimidate you until you cave and give in to what they want. And that's not how this is working. As you see, our allies basically told Trump to go fuck yourself. And Trump basically said to them, fine, then leave NATO if you're not going to help us. It's not that they don't want to help. It's that they weren't consulted. They have no idea what the end game is here. They have no idea what the aim of this war is, and they have no idea why we're in it. So why should they get involved and clean up the mess that he started on his own, by the way, on his own? And by the way, here's another one. Speaking of the SAVE Act, and again, this is something that, just to prove that Trump's SAVE Act is complete bullshit, just to prove that he's a lying piece of shit, Trump is pushing for a voting bill to curb mail-in voting, but he's using mail-in balloting to cast his ballot in a special election that was held today in Palm Beach. And he was in Florida this weekend during that period, and he chose not to vote in person. And he's been criticized in the past for voting by mail while trying to restrict the practice. In 2020, he defended himself by telling reporters that he was allowed to. Yes, he finally said something truthful. He's allowed to, and so is every single American. Okay? Because if you take away mail-in voting, guess what? You can't do it either because you just signed into law that it's illegal. And if it's illegal, how can you do it? So yes, he finally told the truth about something. That you are allowed to do mail-in voting. But he's telling the American people you can't do it. Because it's illegal, because it's fraud. And if that's true, it's not. But if it's true, then Donald Trump voting by mail-in balloting wouldn't surprise me because Donald Trump is a fraudster. He's a con artist. So, so don't believe the lie Democrats know that the Save America Act is a lie. They know it's based on nothing. They know it's based on Donald Trump's delusions of grandeur. They know that Donald Trump is afraid of losing, and he knows he's losing, and he's doing everything he possibly can to make sure he stays in power for life. And it doesn't matter who he harms. Doesn't matter the cost. Doesn't matter who gets affected by it. As long as he gets what he wants, he's happy. But remember that. Donald Trump voted by mail-in ballot this past weekend. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. But Fox will not tell you that. Newsmax will not tell you that. One America won't tell you that. His supporters won't tell you that. And the cult certainly will not say that. They will just go along with this lie and push it. Even if they know that Donald Trump voted by mail-in balloting. And that's the problem. They believe a lie when their own cult master is pretending and has this entire illusion. And it became public. And by the way, this story is from the Washington Post, by the way. In case anybody wants to read it, Washington Post, that's owned by Jeff Bezos, who is a fervent supporter of Donald Trump. And if Trump wants the story to go away, guess what? All he has to do is pick up the phone, call Bezos and say, hey, get rid of the story. I can't let people know that I voted by mail-in ballot because it ruins the illusion. And guess what? Bezos will kill that story. And that's why facts matter. That's why facts matter. You want to believe Donald Trump? Fine. You want to believe the right-wingers? Fine. You want to believe the shitheads like Betty Johnson and Nick Fuentes and Steve Bannon? Fine. Fine. But just remember, Steve Bannon was in prison for meddling in the election. Just remember that. And he's doing it again. Just remember that. Just remember that. And if going to prison is worth it for you to believe this entire illusion that Donald Trump has created, then that's on you. But know this. Know this. Donald Trump is using the "it's good for me, but not the" method. And the Washington Post headline, by the way, says Trump voted by a method he calls mail-in cheating. And he is telling you he could have done it in person, but he didn't want to, but he was too lazy to go out. And so he did it by mail. And that's the point. Mail-in ballot is something that he actually abused. The very thing he's attacking mail-in balloting for. The very thing he's attacking people for. Saying they're abusing the voting system. If you're able to, and you're well, there's no reason why you need to vote absentee. Mail-in balloting is for people who can't vote. People who are on vacation. People who are overseas, like the military. People who are too sick or go out and vote. You know, people are in the hospital and they can't vote. That's what that's for. And Donald Trump just proved to America that Maryland vote that the one thing that he's fighting to get rid of is the one thing he keeps doing publicly and telling people, yes, I'm abusing the system, and yes, I can because I'm allowed to. And that's a truthful thing that he said, that he's allowed to, and so is every single American. That is their right to vote, and they have a right to vote any way they choose. And they have a right to any way they choose. And the states, not the federal government, has the right to decide how their citizens vote. I'm sorry, how their residents vote. And that is a power that our forefathers gave the states when they wrote the Constitution on purpose. Because you cannot give the federal government too much power. And it's worked fine for all these years, and not one person ever had an issue with voting until Donald Trump opened his fucking mouth and said something about it. Why? Because he's a loser. Because he can't fathom the fact that nobody likes him. He can't fathom the fact that he lost. And so he makes these bullshit delusions that said that Democrats cheated and that the election was rigged. And even if that's true, where's the evidence to back it up? Everyone says there's evidence. Then where is the evidence? Again, show me evidence, I'll give you $100. That's it. Show me the evidence and I'll give you $100. And that's the thing. Donald Trump is running a presidency on delusions, on lies, on the solution that he created, and all of you Magites are falling for it hook, line, and sinker. And all of you that keep enabling him, instead of calling out his bullshit, you are the problem. And you are why we are where we are today. And it's up to us in November to tell Donald Trump, fuck you, we're taking our country back. And that's why we're having the No King's Day, and it's going to be bigger and better the third time around. To tell Donald Trump, you are not a king. We fought a war. They run away from that. So stop acting like one. And we have the voice, and we have the power, and that's what makes this country great. And that's what Donald Trump is afraid of. That if we vote in the midterms and the Democrats take control of the government again, that's Donald Trump is afraid of, because he knows that they will that they will hold him accountable. And he's too much of a stupid idiot to realize when he says, they'll find me accountable for something. Well, I can name about 10 of them off the bat. And that's what scares him the most. That they will hold him accountable, and they will hold Pete Hesketh accountable, Pam Bondi accountable. All these people will be held accountable. And that's what the SAVE Act is about. Not what Donald Trump is selling to you. Not what Donald Trump is trying to sell to us. And that's why he's adamant that the Senate focuses on this and nothing but this. And he doesn't care if the airport is causing chaos for millions of people. He does not care if the airport becomes a shit show simply for his vindicative delusions, because he's a fucking loser. He will always be a loser. And all he cares about is power. Power, control, and greed. And that's what a narcissist is. And Donald Trump is a vindicative, sociopathic, narcissistic, pathological liar, taco, temper tantrum, psychopathic, pathological liar. And we need to go into the midterms telling Donald Trump, fuck you, we're taking the country back, and we will win. And you know why we'll win? Because we are the heroes. And you know what else? The villains never win. And we've seen that time and time again, that the bad guys always win. That the bad guys always lose, no matter how hard they try. They have never, ever won. And Donald Trump has already lost. He's just too much of a dimwit to understand that.